What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Welcome back to another edition of the Morning View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Wednesday. It's the last day of November before we head into December. The World Cup game continues. England are through. What a victory last night over there in, I was just about to say Qatar, and then I got nervous because I knew Mina was on. I thought, my pronunciation is going to be terrible.
Fine. You can say it.
Qatar.
You can say it.
I'm trying to work a lot of my pronunciations recently. Speaking of which, we're going to talk about Cody Gakpo, hard G. I've learned that as well. We're going to talk a little bit about Marcus Rashford, his goal-scoring antics for England last night. We're going to talk a little bit about Frimpong, possibly another January signing for United. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to go into the hypothetical universe, Mina, and talk about what if we were to sign some Juventus players in January because of all the situations going on there. I've already had a back and forth with Flex on this, and I think I know where you're going to go with it later on. And we're also going to talk about the matches today in the World Cup too. So it's plenty to get into this morning. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. But firstly, Mina, how you doing?
I'm good. I don't know. What is the day? I don't know. Because of the World Cup, every day is just the same to me. I don't know if it's a Monday, Tuesday, Sunday. I don't know what it is, but it's good. Winter's here, but World Cup football continues.
Exactly. World Cup football continues. No more of the 4 games. Well, it's technically 4 games a day, but it's at 2 points now. Instead of it being 10 a.m., was it 1 a.m., 4 p.m. and 7 p.m.? A lot of people missing the 10 a.m.s.
I'm missing it a little bit.
Are you missing it?
Yeah, it was fun. I want to run to you. It was fun.
I just got burnt out of it, though, very quickly. You know, like when the pandemic, where there was literally a game, every game was televised, and it was just after. And initially, it's great. You're like, it's a novelty. But then after a while, you're like, I'm actually a bit tired of football at the moment. I just want to have a period of time where, there isn't a game for a couple of hours and I can sort of just decompress.
The funny thing is, when the World Cup finishes, literally there's like 3 days and then United play again. So
exactly.
The burnout is going to be real, the football burnout.
Exactly. And we've got friendlies coming up, I think in like a week. Is it next week or the week after? Something like that. So, yeah, it never stops. It never stops. Speaking of United, let's start off talking about Cody Gakpo. Yes, he scored again yesterday. That's 3 in 3. A perfect hat trick of goals across the 3 group games for Cody Gakpo for the Netherlands. And as to be expected, we were linked with him in the summer. And now we're really being heavily linked with him because of Cristiano Ronaldo's departure. And a big piece was written by Matteo Moretto, I believe that's in Italy, saying that Erik ten Hag has Cody Gakpo on his list of preferences to replace Cristiano Ronaldo. He has him first on that list of preferences. Erik ten Hag's interest in Gakpo has continued. After saying goodbye to Ronaldo, he has returned to the charge for him. He has resumed direct contact with Gakpo, transmitting all his esteem through the player's environments. Look at those words. PSV is asking for more than 55 million euros as a fixed fee for Gakpo. They don't look kindly on a winter sale unless a super offer arrives in the contacts that will take place after the World Cup. It is not ruled out he will stay until June. Erik ten Hag is insisting and pressing Manchester United's management to sign Gakpo, aware that other English clubs like Arsenal, Chelsea and Liverpool also like the player very much. Manchester United have to decide if they would wish to please Ten Hag and pay a large sum of money in January for Gakpo or seek a patch for Ronaldo with a 6-month loan before trying to sign Gakpo in the summer. What are your thoughts, firstly, Mina, on Cody Gakpo? Of course, he's had an unbelievable World Cup so far, 3 goals in 3 games, a perfect hat trick of goals. Is your concern, though, a little bit that he's almost doing too well at the World Cup now?
I don't know. It's interesting because I liked him at PSV, and I remember watching him in August, PSV versus Rangers for the Champions League qualifier, and he didn't really impress me that much in that 2-leg fixture because I was thinking, okay, where there's games that he can be quiet, and we've seen it at the World Cup where there's a game where Netherlands are not doing much, and then suddenly he will get a goal. And one thing I have been impressed with, as critical as I have been of him, is that he's given us a variety of goals at the World Cup, shots, headers, whatever.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is the price tag. Obviously, no team will sell their star player or their main striker in January. for anything less than a good fee. And I just think the more he keeps scoring in the World Cup, that's 5-10 million being put on the price tag. Every goal is going to make the price tag go up. The one thing that we've seen with the Netherlands is that he can play across different lines, and we've seen that at PSV sometimes as well, where he can play on the wing, he can play as a striker. He's admitted that he doesn't like to play as a lone number 9, but we've seen him able to do that with the Netherlands, which for us, I think with United, that's what we need. We need an out-and-out striker. Like, we don't need another person that can play off the wing, play through. We need someone to play right through the middle as a lone number 9. So that would be interesting. I would be really. I'm not too sure about whether the board would spend money like that in January. But one thing I am against, and I say this all the time, I'm always against these short-term solutions of strikers. Like, I'm always against a 6-month loan, because it just never worked. Igalo, or a 1-year contract. Cavani then end up getting extended and he wanted to leave. Falcao, Ibrahimovic, like, it's just never worked out. So if we are going to get a striker, hopefully we're going for someone with a long-term idea. And Gakpo has announced himself on the World Cup stage. So whatever price tag that they put on him, it might not be what we think he's worth, but with the performance that he's given at the World Cup and what the club value him at, I think it would probably make sense.
Well, KG's in the chat. Good morning, KG, to you watching. And you say Igalo and short-term stopgaps. KG has an Igalo shirt. Okay, so yeah. You thought my dad was terrible with his selection of shirts. All of those shirts at UVHQ with the likes of Phil Jones, Fellaini, Lukaku, Owen Hargreaves. They're all on the back of those. Michael Owen.
Igalo is something else.
Igalo's way up there. That is right up there. That is some strong Nigerian bias from KG. That's what it is. That's why he wants to sign Victor Osimhen. That's why he wants to sign Osimhen in the summer. My concern a little bit, though, with Cody Gakpo now, and it's kind of what I touched upon in my question to you, of him almost doing too well, is that I don't buy the part where PSV are saying, "Oh, it'd only take a strong offer. It'd only take a strong offer for us to accept." They wanted to sell him in the summer. Well, look, he's their best player, clearly, but every club and every player has a price, particularly in the Eredivisie. And PSV aren't in the situation that Ajax were in the summer, where it's like, "Oh, we've sold all of our players. We're fine. We don't need the cash." PSV, by all accounts, do need the cash. So I think of an offer of 45 million euros, possibly 50 came in, I think they would accept it. My concern is that for a decent player nowadays, that's a pretty decent price. That's a pretty low price for a player that can actually impact your season. And Manchester United aren't the only club in January that need signings or need attackers, and for various reasons, particularly even in the Premier League. The report said it. You look at someone like Chelsea, whereby they spent big in the summer, yes, but they're still way off it. They still need attacking players. Graham Potter hasn't had a transfer window at the club, so you would assume that Todd Boehly would be like, just in the same way that I backed Thomas Tuchel in the summer, I'll back you in January, you'll make a couple of signings. You could absolutely see Cody Gakpo going to Chelsea under a Thomas Tuchel side. Arsenal, on the other end of the spectrum, doing really well. They might think, you know what? If we get a couple of players in, we might actually win the title. Like, let's not rule that out at this point. The feeling is, isn't it, that Arsenal won't win the title because their squad's just a little bit too small. The games, because they come thick and fast, because they're still in, the Europa League, etc., that might start to catch up to them. But they might look at someone like a Cody Gakpo and say, well, we could add him to the squad and it could help us manage the games. My point being that it's not as if we've just got a straight run at the guy. We've got, yes, we might be first in that list because we did have those contacts in the summer. And if that report is accurate, Ten Hag's speaking to him or speaking to his representatives. But at the same time, Mina, wasn't Ten Hag in daily contact with Frankie de Jong in the summer? How did that work out? So are we right to be worried that other teams could be sniffing around too?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, we are right. Like, I think in the summer when we wanted Gakpo, I think the only thing that was maybe putting the club off was the price tag, because it was like, I think they were saying 60 million euros, which is around 53 million pounds roughly. And I guess that was
the Antony thing as well, wasn't it?
And we were trying to sign Antony as well. For me, I think Arsenal, Chelsea are linked to him. Obviously, he could have gone to Southampton and Leeds. I think they had 2 bids accepted of like 25 million euros. So that's how you know the United tax really, really, really exists. But I do think the way he's performing at the World Cup, there won't be only English teams maybe looking at him. I feel like maybe like our competition might be coming within Europe as well, and that'll be interesting to see. Again, I don't ever recall bar Bruno Fernandes and maybe Nemanja Vidic us buying like a big player in January.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think
Uncle
under
Pat.
Patrice, but of recent, like over the last 10 years, has Bruno been the only person we've brought in January for a big fee? That's what I'm trying to think.
I mean, that is a good question. I cannot think of one off the top of my head. And to your point, a big player. And even, to be honest, even Bruno, that was kind of by circumstance. That was kind of, we were going to go for him in the summer. It didn't work out. Then it was like, we'll wait until next summer. And then it was a feeling of actually someone might come in for him. So we've got to act quickly. And we got Bruno.
But I do think with United, if we want to compete with the best teams, we have to do business in January. We can't be like, okay, well, we'll wait until the summer, because if the club are thinking now that, you know, Ronaldo is gone and we can buy a player, well, Liverpool bought Luis Diaz in January because they knew Mane was leaving in the summer. Now that we know that Ronaldo has gone, we should be in January looking for a striker. I don't want to hear anything about like a temporary 6-month stopgap or anything. We have to, if we want to compete with the best teams, we have to like go out in the January window. And it's going to be such a fluctuated market because of the World Cup, because a lot of people don't want to sell in January, because, you know, players might be performing well. It will be really, really interesting to see. Hopefully we can maybe, fingers crossed, offload some players as well. But I doubt that would happen. But we can't, realistically, we cannot go into the second half of the season thinking, yeah, okay, we can continue with the risk of having our strikers out due to injury and then playing someone as a false nine because we don't want to buy a striker.
No, I totally agree. I've been beating this drum for a while now, saying that I think Erik ten Hag is well within his rights to go to the Manchester United board and say, what was my aim for the beginning of the season? You want me to qualify for the top 4? I'm telling you now, if we do not sign an attacker or someone that can play as a striker, not necessarily a striker in the case of Cody Gakpo, but someone that can play as a striker, we will not qualify for the top 4, or it becomes very, very difficult, because we were light with Ronaldo. So without him, we're very, very light. And you can't, it's been proven, the sample size is there this season. You can't rely on Anthony Martial to last the remainder of the season. Hopefully his fitness issues are behind him, or certainly he's going to actually play 90 minutes between now and the end of the season. But even if Martial doesn't get injured between now and the end of the season, he still can't play every game because he can't, you know. And Marcus Rashford, whilst he's in great form at the moment, yesterday he did that coming off the wings. Actually, in the second half, ironically, that was off the right-hand side. Apparently can't play that. And it was off the right-hand side yesterday for England. But the point being that we don't really want to see Marcus Rashford shifted up front. And I understand the pushback, and I was talking to a couple of the We Talk Ajax guys about this the other day, saying, well, you do realize that Cody Gakpo is not a striker. And it's sort of like, well, I think most United fans do realize that. But again, because it's going to be difficult, not impossible, but difficult to sign a bona fide number 9, 30 goals a season striker in January, that is difficult. You can get Cody Gakpo in. We know the price is there. We know the availability is there. We know the player wants to come, and he can do a job across the front three. And I think in Erik ten Hag's mind, he probably would want a front three that's fairly interchangeable, can switch sides, can play up front, can do whatever, and come in and affect the game and score goals and get assists. And then in the summer, then we can go for that striker that's 80 million, 90 million, whoever that may be. I mean, again, it's been linked to Osimhen, but probably a million other players will be brought up between now and then. This just feels the right one. And to your point, United have now got to do something which historically, and certainly in more recent memory, they haven't been good at, and that's be very proactive. The moment that they knew Ronaldo was gone, or going even before they agreed the termination with Ronaldo, they should have been on the phone to go to Gakpo being, hey, Ronaldo's going, do you want to come in? Let's figure this all out. And quite interestingly, to WJ Barrett's point here, has 5 months of support, appreciate 5 months of support, says, morning, Owen and Mina. I genuinely think this deal is already done. With CR7 gone and Cody having the same agent as Erik ten Hag, I think it's done. Is that maybe a bit of a step too far to assume that the deal's already done?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't just assume, but I wouldn't. Would some people say that right now the way he's performing in the World Cup is an audition for other teams? Like, possibly. Some people say it could be, that could be argued, but then I wouldn't say that the deal is done, because until I see him holding a United shirt like
never
this,
know.
I'm not gonna say that. But hopefully it's a deal that they can get done. I think in the summer, that in January, that should be our biggest priority. Like, if we were to go into the window and just sign one player, which is a striker, I would be okay with that for the season. So you've got to hope.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just again, to your point, until he's holding up that shirt, because you never know. I mean, back in the Sir Alex Ferguson days, the idea of a deal sort of being done but not being officially announced would be very, very real. But I don't know. My concern is, and I've kind of caught myself doing this, and I've seen other people doing this on social media, is some people have already started assuming he's a United player. So, this sort of narrative of Manchester United are just killing it at this World Cup, because you've got Rashford getting player of the matches, Casemiro player of the matches, Bruno Fernandes player of the matches. They're putting Cody Gakpo in that, like he's already our player. They're going, Eric Ten Hag, his fingerprints are all over this World Cup. It's like, he's not actually our player just yet. But it would be so great, wouldn't it, Mina, if just during this tournament, it's just like, it's already been pre-agreed. It's come out. Cody Gakpo from January the 1st is going to be a United player. We don't have anything to worry about. But being a United fan, we're not really.
There's always something to worry about as a United fan. So it's not the easiest journey.
Uncle M with a super chat here says, Martial was a winger/striker. I can see Gakpo working in the same sense. Yeah, I just think that, again, he's not the long-term solution as a striker, but Eric Ten Hag has spoken about, particularly whenever we don't win a game this season, in those games that we've drawn games or we've been not clinical in front of goal, he keeps saying over and over and over again, we need attacking options. And he doesn't say striker, he doesn't say winger, he just goes, we need attacking options. And I think Cody Gakpo ticks all of those targets. And obviously, look, if in the next game, they've got the USA now in the knockout stages, Saturday, I think that's a 3 p.m. kickoff. If he scores again, then even more, the scrutiny will come. But it appears that that's the one for United. And again, fingers crossed they get that done. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, folks. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. We can get to 100 likes easily. We're 40 likes away from 100, so be sure to smash a like on that like button. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford. You can see him right there on the screen with his Player of the Match trophy. What did you make of Rashford's performance yesterday? Of course, 2 goals. He's the joint top goal scorer in the tournament so far. He's level with the likes of Kylian Mbappe and others. Just how pleased are you for Rashford? What a turnaround from last year.
Yeah. I said this, I think, after the Iran game, how happy I was for him. And even just this season as a whole, how he's been performing at club level. And to have the Euros end the way that it did for someone like him, and also for someone like Saka, I'm really happy for both of them, how the World Cup has gone, but particularly Marcus Rashford, obviously, because he plays for United. I think that free kick yesterday, I remember as soon as he stood over the ball and I was like, yeah, top corner. I just said it. I didn't really think he was going to score. I genuinely did not think he was going to score. And I was a bit shocked because I saw a funny stat afterwards that said that in the World Cup he's taken 2 free kicks and scored 1, and some players have taken more than 20 and only scored 1. So that's an interesting stat. But for me, what I was most impressed with was his ability to play on the right, where, like you said earlier, a lot of criticism has come saying that he can't play on the right-hand side. But that goal yesterday he scored on the right-hand side, he took on his man, beat his man, done some step overs, cut in and shot with his left foot, which so much times you would see him just try scuff that with his right foot. But I really think that this attacking training that he's done and the coaches that he's been working with at United, when it comes to his finishing and his decision making, is really paying off. And you're seeing it even in the England team. He's playing a lot more smart. He's playing a lot more practical. And I'm happy for him. Like I said, a lot of people may have given up on him last season with how he was performing. He even came out after the game yesterday and said that a close friend of his passed away a few days ago from cancer. So to have that on your mind and then come out and still be able to perform. I remember in the first half, a lot of people on social media that were quite critical of him. And it just shows now he's kind of building that mentality where he's able to switch it around within one half. In the past, we wouldn't have seen that. We would have seen that 90 minutes of him, shoulders, shrugged, head down on the floor, just booting the ball and trying to run after it. But he's become a lot more practical. He's become a lot more wiser with his decisions. And I really think he's making an argument to start for the England team in the next game.
100%, absolutely. I mean, again, to your point with the first half as well, we're talking and waxing lyrical about him scoring 2 goals. He could have had a hat trick. He should have scored in the first half. He was through one-on-one. Keeper rushed out pretty quickly, but that's maybe another aspect of his game that he needs to improve. But I think it really is such a positive story. And I think that I put out a tweet after the game yesterday that it just goes to show, I think we live in this world, and sometimes I think, we're all guilty of it. I know I am, of when someone's in a bit of a bad run of form, or they have a bad season, not just bad run of form, but they have a bad season. We're so quick to write people off and just say, well, they're finished. They're rubbish. They had a good couple of seasons early on in their career, or for whatever reason, they're done. And it's because we have seen players that do just drop off and they never get it back again. But it does go to show that if you are in a bad moment or you're having bad form or a bad season, one bad season does not make a bad player. It is salvageable. You have to have the right mentality and the right attitude and the work rate. And sometimes it's for a combination of factors. It can be injuries. It can be the club you're in. It can be your personal life. It can be a lot of things. But I think he deserves immense credit for having this ability to bounce back and bouncing back in the manner that he has. Again, I think it's incredibly impressive. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for it, because I think lesser people and lesser players wouldn't have been able to bounce back. And as we said after the Iran game, the first game, that we're talking about him scoring goals. If the World Cup was, this time last year, he wouldn't even be in the squad. He'd been nowhere near that squad because he was so far removed from his best self. So I think he deserves a ton of credit. I also think, Erik ten Hag, talk about his fingerprints over this World Cup. He deserves credit as well, because yes, it has to be upon the individual to really want to improve and want to get back to the levels that they know they're capable of. But also it does take your manager at club level to put their arm around you and say, look, forget what happened last year. Forget what happened last season. You're going to be my guy. You're going to be playing. He has been playing. And now he's taken over this form that he's had at club level into international and into the biggest international competition. I mean, he did win September Player of the Month in the Premier League. He has been scoring goals in big matches. And to your point now, logically, you would think that he's got to start, hasn't he? He must start against Senegal.
Yeah, I think for against Senegal, it'll be an interesting one. I think physicality will come into it, and I think England just need pace. I think with pace on each flank, I think they can definitely cause problems for Senegal's back four. I think when Harry Kane is dropping quite deep, having people like Foden, Saka, Sterling, even Rashford running into them channels against a slower person like Koulibaly, which he's a great defender, but he's not got the pace, is something that could work in England's favour. And I think the way that Marcus Rashford is performing for England at the moment, coming off the bench against Iran, first touch, he scores, against Wales, two goals, I think, and 2 great finishes, by the way. They were 2 very good finishes. I think he's really got an argument to start, obviously, with Sterling, with Saka. The debate can be there and is there to be had. But I would like to see him playing against Senegal. That's not my United bias speaking, but I would like to see him playing against Senegal and starting.
We were talking before we went live as well that Senegal, whilst they did finish second in Group A, that is not an easy game. Make no mistake, that is not an easy game. I know they're significantly weaker without Sadio Mane, but they still are the AFCON champions. They still are a quality opponent. It's the first time they've reached knockout stages since 2002, where, of course, their manager was their captain at the time. So he has the experience of going a bit further in a World Cup competition. Whilst we have got the easier draw there because we came top of the group and we're facing second, how challenging is that going to be there? Should we also be realistic that, yes, okay, played well against Iran, played well in the second half against Wales, but if we play like we played against the USA, who really, you talk about physicality, they were just more aggressive than us and they dominated us in the midfield, could be in a little bit of trouble there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we can't, England shouldn't underestimate their opponent. And I think with Senegal, they probably looking at, they might be rewatching the US game to see what they could replicate against England, finding their weaknesses, because against USA, you saw in the midfield was so dominated by US in that England game that England could not get a string of passes together. They were struggling in possession, and I think it was McKinney, Adams, and Musa that were just literally pressing. They were on Bellingham. They were on everyone. I think the biggest thing is that Senegal will be missing their main midfielder due to suspension, Gaya, and obviously no Sadio Mane. But one thing that I like about Senegal, and not just Senegal, but we see it with some of the African teams, a lot of people count out the smaller nations when it comes to football, when it comes to the likes of Saudi Arabia, when it comes to the likes of, Japan, when it comes to the likes of Morocco, Ghana, whoever it may be. But when I watch teams like Senegal, Cameroon, Ghana, that there's a unity in their team, and they'll fight for each other. I remember even with Saudi Arabia, they said that, the manager said stuff to them in the dressing room against Argentina that made them want to go out and eat grass. Like, who says that? It made them want to go out and eat grass. And I think when a team has that kind of momentum and unity within their squad, that's one thing that plays a big part in their performance outside of technical ability and just tactics. So I think England should not feel like, oh yeah, we got the easier draw. They shouldn't feel like Senegal are through because they have the ability. It's not like they got through by accident. They lost their opening match and bounced back from that. So
Yeah,
it will
100%.
definitely be. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a physical game. If anybody watched the Senegal game yesterday versus Ecuador, you could see how physical it was. It was a very physical game. Kind of reminded me of AFCON sometimes, but it was a very physical game. So I do think England can come out on top, because I just feel like England are more clinical in front of goal. They take their chances. But yesterday, Senegal against Ecuador, they had about 5 chances in the opening 30 minutes, and it took a penalty for them to go ahead. They were not clinical enough. They're not clinical enough sometimes. And I think that's the one thing that will definitely work in England's favour. When you've got the likes of Sterling, Rashford, Harry Kane, goals will come from somewhere. They will always come from somewhere. Whereas when you look at Senegal, you think, where are the goals going to come from? So it's going to be a good game. I think it will be a great fixture. It will be a great game of physicality for England, especially if they want to be a top team in this tournament. I think they have to show their ability on all levels, not just the tactical level, but on a physical level. So we'll see. I don't know who I'm supporting, but I'll be watching as a football enthusiast.
No, I think it's going to be a challenging game. To your point, my concern is if we play like we did against the USA, where it's not a case of just being up for it enough and allowing them to dominate midfield, be more physical, be more aggressive, then I think we might have an issue. Like with a lot of the England games, I say this going into every England game because it is true. If these England players play to their best ability or play just to the level that we expect them to, they should beat a lot of teams in this competition because they're good players, very good players. But at the same time, I'm very uncomfortable with certain people already looking to, well, who are we going to play in the quarterfinals then? Whoa. Let's not even get into that. Do we need to say Iceland in 2016 at the Euros over again? Okay, that can happen. And let's face it, I think Senegal are much better than Iceland. So anything is possible, especially in knockout competition, especially now we're getting into the territory of if you don't do it in 90 minutes, we're going into extra time and penalties, and then anything's possible as well, especially with England. So, yeah, I'm not looking too far ahead or anything like that. I think it's going to be a really difficult game. England should win, and the expectation is that they will win. But at the same time, what we have seen in this World Cup so far is that you don't know what England you're going to get. You can get England playing like they did against Iran, which was very impressive, scoring 6 goals. Still managed to concede 2. Then they go from that to the USA, where they were lethargic, again, not aggressive enough. Then you go to the first half against Wales, which was really more of the same. Whilst it was a great result last night for England, that first half was dreadful. I mean, it was so dull and they didn't do anything. And then a bit like against Iran, whereby score a goal and suddenly they'll score like 2 or 3 immediately. So it's a difficult one for England. Again, I still do expect them to win. They should win. Make no mistake. If we went out to Senegal, can you imagine the outrage? But make no mistake, it's going to be difficult. VK with the super chat says, an African nation will win this World Cup. Saudi has been impressive, high energy and speed. Do you think that's maybe a step too far, an African side winning this World Cup?
You know what?
Which one then? If one was to win, what would be the most likely one to win?
I definitely think it could be an African nation between them or Asia in terms of Saudi or something. I just feel like African football has advanced a lot over the last 15 years, and especially in the last 4 years, they've become a lot more competitive. a lot more tactical, a lot more structure, and they have a lot more players that play in the big leagues compared to in the past. I do think, like I said earlier, I think last week Morocco is my dark horse for the tournament. I would be ecstatic if an African team won a World Cup, simply because Africa's never won a World, like no team from the African federations have ever won a World Cup. So I would love that to happen. Out of the 5 African teams, I think probably Morocco or Senegal stand the biggest chance if it comes to progressing far. But Morocco still need to make it out of their group. But don't get me wrong, if Senegal cause an upset and they beat England, I fancy their chances of going quite far in the tournament.
Just to briefly bring it back to Rashford before we move on, Gareth Southgate was talking after the game yesterday, talking about the improvement of Rashford, and said, quote, "I saw him in the summer and we had a long chat. He had some clear ideas on things he felt he needed to think about and do. With his club, there's happiness in his performances this year, and that showed in training. We've got a different version completely to the player we had at the Euros last summer. He's managed to produce those moments tonight. He could have had a hat-trick, but it's great for him and great for us." And it's quite interesting, actually, before we move on to Jeremy Frimpong in just a second, that Rashford actually, not only did he put in that work over the summer that was well documented, working with different coaches, nutritionists, etc., taking time away, improving himself, recovering from the injuries, working with Erik ten Hag, but even at an international level, he actually had a sit down with Gareth Southgate and said, "Look, I'm going to go away. I'm going to improve. What do you think I need to improve on? What do I need to do to get back into the squad?" And again, I'm sure those meetings happen all the time with players, but it just goes to show the work he was putting in over the summer of going to all of these different people and saying, "Look, what do I need to do? Obviously I'm not doing well. What do I need to do?" And that's a credit to him, is it not?
Yeah, definitely. It is a credit. And to be a young player of that, obviously he's not that young. He's 24, I think, if I'm not wrong. I think Rashford's 24. But to be self-aware and to want to get better and get back into form is a big characteristic to have. He's put not only his faith in the manager, but he's also put faith in himself. And as a player, to be at a low in your career and be able to uplift yourself in that way by putting all your chips on the table and saying, "You know what, I'm going to bet on myself to come back from the difficult season that I have." Credit to him, respect to him for doing that. Oh, he's 25. Yeah, people are correcting me in the chat. 25 is still of a young age. I think once he gets to,
and he's been around ages. Let's face it.
And he's been around for a long time. That's the thing. He's been around since he was a teenager. So I think a lot of people forget that as well. So to have that kind of self-awareness and to be like, okay, I need to get better. Obviously, he knew the World Cup was coming up, but he also knew that there was positions in contention at the club. He knew that no one's position was really solidified in that attacking trio. So he knew what he needed to work on. And I really hope Jadon Sancho and him are having conversations about what Rashford has done, because we know that Sancho has gone through a difficult time. We know that Sancho has lost form. We know that he's not at the World Cup. He's lost his starting spot in the team. And we know that he's struggling clearly off the pitch, which is what Rashford was going through last season. It's like a replication of it. Obviously, their experiences are probably different, but it's quite similar in terms of what they're experiencing. So hopefully Jadon Sancho is learning from what Rashford has done, because I've seen clips of Rashford, Sancho training in Holland with coaches recommended by Erik ten Hag, and he was training with an amateur team in the Netherlands who coach at this club that Erik ten Hag recommended to him. So I'm very hopeful that he will also bounce back. I know this is about Rashford, but I've seen like something similar in terms of with Jadon Sancho. So hopefully Sancho takes a leaf out of Rashford's book in terms of how to bounce back, because Rashford is showing players that just because you have a dip in form for 12 months, 18 months, however long it's been, it's not permanent. As long as you try to come out of that slump, it's not going to be something permanent. And he's put his faith in himself, and I respect that 100%.
Absolutely. Here's hoping for Jadon Sancho. Let's talk about fullbacks. We're going to talk a little bit about Jeremy Frimpong. But before we do, be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner too. I think we're something like 70 subscribers away from 126K. So if you haven't subscribed already, now is the time to do so, bottom right-hand corner. Remember, you can join the UB Members Club too. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat. You get your badges, your emojis, your exclusive members-only content as well. But let's talk about Jeremy Frimpong, Mina. And this comes from Sky Sports out there in Germany. Saying a summer move to Manchester United for Jeremy Frimpong is becoming more and more apparent. He now knows United are interested and is also open to a change. He has a contract until 2025. Talks should be accelerated after the World Cup. A change in the summer is therefore imminent, especially since Leverkusen are already looking for successors. So we spoke earlier on about the Cody Gakpo deal and United getting things done early and making sure that things are sort of, signed, sealed and done early. It would appear, if these sources are accurate, and look, Sky Sports in Germany, so you would think no, they're sort of saying that, talks could be accelerated when it comes to Jeremy Frimpong for the summer, and Leverkusen are already looking for replacements. Is he a player we should be looking at, do you think?
I think he's definitely an option, a right-back option, depending on the price and whether I'm not sure if he's going to come in as a backup right-back or come in as the starting right-back. But I would also be very shocked if United were to. I definitely feel like in the January, or if we were to sign Frimpong, because I know Ten Hag has wanted a right back ASAP, a backup right back ASAP. So if we were to sign Frimpong, say in January, I would be shocked if we were to buy 2 players in one January window. Like, I do feel like with this board, the January signing is really one or the other. And which one do we need more importantly? But for me, I think the biggest part with Frimpong is definitely like a price tag. How much do Leverkusen value him at? Because I think I've seen price tags of 20, 25 million euros, which I don't think is bad. But with United tax, you just never know what you're going to get.
No, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, it's interesting because to your point, Ten Hag, he's gone on record talking about a club like United should have 2 fullbacks, in every left back and full and right back. They should have at least 2 players, quality players. And he's kind of got that already on the left-hand side. I think he's happy with the competition that exists there between Luke Shaw and Terrell Malacia. We know on the right side, it's Diogo Dalot. Aaron Wan-Bissaka might as well not exist. I think he's going out on loan in January to Crystal Palace. I mean, the way they're talking about this deal is that something could be tied up for the summer. I would be surprised. I mean, look, I think clearly Ten Hag wants him. But to your point, if United went to him and said, yeah, we've got Frimpong, he'd be like, great, when for? July. He'd be like, oh, I kind of need him now. I really need him now. But, and it's interesting because we spoke about this during the loan view. Be sure to check it out. It's on the channel. There were reports the other day saying, I think it was Samuel Lucas from the Manchester Evening News, saying that actually they would consider bringing back Ethan Laird. And you know me, Mina, I've been screaming it from the rooftops to anyone that would listen. Bring Ethan Laird back. And now with the manager, McBeal, going to Rangers, there is a possibility that Ethan Laird could come back. So could we be looking at a situation whereby Laird comes back in January, he's the backup to Diogo Dalot, and make no mistake, Laird would play games because Dalot can't play every game. So Laird would play some games. We then get Frimpong in the summer, and then maybe Laird goes out once again on loan in the summer. Is that kind of a scenario we could see, do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's more realistic to happen than Frimpong coming in January, because we know that he's probably going to be a summer signing. But I do feel kind of bad for Ethan Laird if he was to come back, because he's playing consistently at QPR. The fans love him. He's playing a regular 90 minutes. I think he started every game bar one for QPR, and that game was when he first joined the club. Obviously, McBeal has now left QPR and has gone to Rangers, so that may be a playing factor in terms of Ethan Laird. But I do think Ethan probably looks at how United loanees in the past have worked out in terms of being integrated into the team, because there's not really many academy players that have gone on loan that have then gone into the starting lineup or managed to get consistent minutes. And if players have gone on loan, they've just ended up being sold at the end. So he could be like, okay, I'll come back for 6 months, but then, I want regular game time, and might leave. He might get sold in the summer, which could happen because, we need funds. And that's what's happened regularly with some academy players that haven't really gotten into the first team, or he might just choose to stay at QPR and finish the season out there. I'm shocked we never really looked into bringing him back way earlier, but I guess he just hasn't been at QPR long enough for the manager to be able to see his abilities. But now that he's been there for half a season and we're very familiar with his game, I can see him coming back in January and then us going for a right back in the summer.
I think it's a terrific opportunity for Ethan Laird. I do. I think to your point, look, when it comes to academy players, getting into the first team at any club, there's an element of luck to it. It's injuries, suspensions, the manager, whatever. And Ethan Ladd coming back, he'd be back up. 100% Diogo Dalot, he'd be back up too. And Dalot would play the majority of the games because that's what he's done this season. But at the same time, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Premier League games, as the season goes on, you never know what can happen to Dalot. Ethan Laird might feel like, you know what, actually, if I come back to the club and play back up to Dalot for 6 months, I can always go back out on loan next summer. There might be an opportunity that I can play quite a few games for United that I didn't think I would be able to. And then, like we're just talking about, maybe that's when in the summer we do get Frimpong. He's a relatively low-cost choice for Erik ten Hag. Obviously, look, Dutch player. He's very familiar with him. Actually, he was a youth player at City as well. You'd have two of him in one squad. You'd have Sancho and Frimpong, both in United squad that were at one point played for Man City. But I would keep an eye on this one, I think. I think this is another Erik ten Hag target that he's got his eye on. And again, because the deal feels relatively straightforward to do in the summer, you would think that hopefully it can get done, but we'll have to wait and see when it comes to that. This is interesting. I want to talk about this. Juventus. Now, you might be thinking, Owen, what are you talking about here? This is a United show. I can understand a little bit of the World Cup conversation. Why are we talking about Juventus? Well, it's because we're going to enter the world of hypotheticals like Marvel. What if Manchester United could purchase some Juventus players in January? Now, this is about, if you haven't heard, Sunday, the entire board of directors in Turin at Juventus, they all resigned. They just all announced we've resigned. That's including the club owner. He resigned as well. Still owns the club, but he's no longer on the board of directors because nobody is. The reason why the entire Juventus board resigned is because they are actively at the moment being investigated and it doesn't look good at all. And when I say it doesn't look good, I'm talking like Juventus 2006 levels of not good. They have reported record losses for the calendar year of 2021 to 2022. There's also significant allegations into false accounting, not reporting said losses. There's investigations into deferred salary payments during the pandemic, i.e. they declared rather that they were deferring payments, but they were still actually making the payments to the players and these people. And reportedly, they could have been doing that to avoid tax purposes or whatever. There's also threats of relegation, considering how bad some of these sanctions could be if they're found guilty of all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people are saying, if there was nothing to be guilty about, why would your entire board of directors resign? It doesn't look good. So the point is that we could be looking at a situation, Mina, where there's a bit of a Juventus fire sale going on in January. And if that was the case, if the entire Juventus squad was up for sale, which you never know, which players would you be interested in coming to Manchester United?
You know what? Maybe Vlahovic. Part of me wants to say Pogba. I'm shameless. I'm shameless. A part of me wants to say it, but he's been injured, and I think we've passed that stage in terms of Manchester United and moving forward. Plus, it'd be a toxic relationship again. So that would be a stupid decision. But I really think Vlahovic would be really the only player I would take. I don't think there's anyone else at Juve that. The thing is, I've not watched Juve enough this season because every time I've watched them, they've bored me. They've absolutely bored me. So I haven't watched them enough, and Allegri football is just not my cup of tea. So yeah, there's nobody else. There's actually no one. Who would you take?
Vlahovic absolutely would be an option. And to be honest, even before all of this madness at Juve, we were linked to him possibly in January because I think, things about he wasn't happy there or whatever. Good player. We need a striker. We spoke about United going big in the summer for a striker. If someone like him became available, you would absolutely then say, buy him, forget it in the summer. You've already got him. So that's one part. Chiesa as well. I know he's had the injury concerns and he's been out of action for a long time. He's just come back, but he's a quality player. Would be one to consider. Maybe was it Locatelli in midfield?
Yeah,
good player as well.
Yeah, I'd take him.
Yeah, I think I would take him. I put this on Twitter yesterday, and Flex just went Pogba. One word. He said he'd bring back Paul Pogba, and I sent him a voice note saying, "Why are you joking around?" He's not joking. He was like,
"Listen, as much as I liked Pogba, and I was a fan, I don't want to see him back at Manchester United, and also the fact that he has not played a single game.
Not a minute. Could you imagine the situation?
30 minutes. He played, I think, 30 minutes at pre-season, and he got injured. That's the only time I've seen him in a Juve shirt on a pitch, and then never seen him again. So, for the sake of that, and the rumours about him in the summer, I'd very much keep him far away from Manchester United as we go through this process.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, could you imagine the scenario in which he goes to Juventus, does not play, and comes back to United? Would be wild. Look, the Pogba thing, I said it last night. I got asked the question during the match view for the England game. Ironically enough, you would say, look, we've actually got the players that he would be better suited right now and the manager that he'd be better suited to. But I'm off the train. You know what I mean? I'm not on no more circus at United. And part of that with Paul Pogba, it wasn't necessarily his fault. I understand that. But there's just a lot that comes with him. And I had 6 years of the conversation of how do you unlock Paul Pogba? And ironically, the answer might have been Casemiro and Christian Eriksen, right? But he came too late. It wasn't the right timing. Ships in the night, they passed. Sorry, I'm not having it.
I like him enough to be like, yeah, I can watch him at another club. We've been there, done it, got the receipt, but I don't think it's a casket worth reopening.
No.
Also, like I don't know how his career is going to pan out now, because I just feel like he's just injury struck. It's like, it reminds me of Umtiti and the way his career is kind of panning out as well. So that's a different story. But in terms of players I would take from Juve, probably Vlahovic, Locatelli, Chiesa, yeah, but like where would we fit him in? Obviously, this is all hypothetical, so it's not realistically gonna happen. But where would we fit him in? And I know he's like one of the quickest players in Serie A.
Yeah, I just think players like that, you find a way. You bring him in, and like Ten Hag said, attacking options. You want to have attacking options up front, and he'd absolutely be an option. And again, as you said, it is hypothetical. We don't really know what's going to happen with Juventus, but for the entire board of directors to resign, and then suddenly with all of this going on, and the financial situation with Juventus has actually been going on for a while now. It's been about 18 months, couple of years. It kind of goes back to, and I don't want to, here we go, I don't want to put it on Ronaldo, but during that time, they spent a load of money, a lot of money. Basically, they wanted to win the Champions League. They wanted to be like, we're going to win the Champions League. We're bringing all these people to the club. Didn't work out. Then obviously the pandemic happened, everyone loses money, and they just haven't been able to recover, and they've sort of constantly been snowballing from them. Who knows what could happen to them? But from all accounts, all of these sort of, top tier journalists are sort of saying, this really does not look good.
I saw that they could get their Serie A title taken back from them. I think it was 2019-20 season. I can't remember if that was the season that they won it. But they were saying that could be a punishment. Obviously, prison for some of the directors could be an option, because financial accounting fraud is not a joke, especially when it's millions. I think in total they should have reported nearly 220 million euros in losses.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think they said, it's funny because they said that they deferred 6 months of wages, when really it was only 1 month of wages that they deferred. That
exactly,
players agreed to.
It's insane when you really read it. I was reading it this morning, talking about it, and to your point, like again, the losses are just astronomical, like £220 million. To your point, they said they deferred 4 months of salary payments, but they were still doing them. And essentially, their point being that actually they might have been deferring them allegedly to avoid paying tax on them or declaring them. It's insane. It is an insane situation that I think it's barely scratched the surface. Possibly right back, Danilo, bring him in as a right back, backup option. Alexandro, left back as well. There are players there.
Alexandro, no, I wouldn't have him.
No, we were linked with him in Jose era. Do you remember that?
We were, but I wouldn't have him.
Why? What? Any particular reason why?
No, I just think we're okay with Luke Shaw and Malacia. I think for now we're all right with that. Obviously, in a hypothetical world, listen, bring all of them. They can sit on our bench hypothetically.
A merger. Man United, Juventus, FC.
This is all hypothetical at this point.
Yeah, anything's possible. Let's finish off talking about the World Cup. Of course, there are games today. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. So today, the groups being decided are Group D and Group C. Or Group C and Group D, if you want to do it in alphabetical order, but the Group D games are coming up first. Group D, let's talk about that first. So, of course, you've got France already through. Then you've got Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. Realistically, it looks to be between Australia and Denmark as the two teams looking to qualify and finish second in their group. You've got Tunisia facing off against France today, and you would assume France, you would think maybe do a job. You never know, though. But really, all eyes are on that second game between Australia and Denmark. Really, whoever wins that one most likely will go through. Who do you suspect joins France in the knockout stages?
I think Denmark. I think when I was doing my World Cup bracket as well, I put France and Denmark in. I think it's unlucky for Tunisia because they've actually performed pretty well this World Cup in comparison to previous World Cups. But I think to leave their deciding match to the last game against a team like France when they had Denmark and Australia, I think they have to beat France and hope the other two draw for them to go through, which is quite unlikely. But defensively, Tunisia are quite compact. But against the likes of Mbappe, Giroud, Dembele, Griezmann, I would be very shocked if they were able to pull it off. But this is the World Cup of shockers, so I'm not going to say nothing is possible. I think the game to watch will probably be between Australia and Denmark, just simply because the winner of that game will probably join France and go through. I do think Denmark have a good opportunity. They've got a very decent team that can compete on this level. So that will be interesting. I did have France and Denmark going through from this group.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, I mean, you would think Denmark, they've got better players, got more experience, they'll probably go through, but wouldn't write off Australia. I wouldn't.
Same.
I mean, I watched their last game. And I kind of got caught up in it a little bit because I think it was on BBC. Mark Schwartz was there, and they were the Australia coach was talking after the game, and it did feel like, oh, actually, there might be a bit of a moment for them. They scored the header they scored was really good, and again, whilst you would expect Denmark to go through, I wouldn't rule out Australia there. I think that one's possible, but it's really, I think it'll be a good fixture, a good World Cup fixture. And to your point, it is the World Cup of shocks, and particularly we are starting to see with these sort of groups culminating, anything really is possible. Anything can happen. It is still tournament football, knockout football. So yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. That's what I would say. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a bit of a shock there. And then you've got Group C, big games in Group C. I think anyone's still possible to go through in Group C as well. So you've got Poland versus Argentina and Saudi Arabia versus Mexico. Of course, people were talking about Messi after the last game for Argentina. At the moment, as things stand, Poland are top of the group with 4 points. Argentina are in second with 3. Saudi Arabia also on 3 points. They're in third. And Mexico on 1 point. Who'd you pick to go through in that group, in Group C?
Who do I pick to go through? Originally, I had Poland and Argentina going through from that group. That was prior to the World Cup. But after watching the World Cup and watching Saudi Arabia's performance, I really do fancy them to maybe win today against Mexico and count on Argentina to beat Poland. Or even, I'm not sure if that game stays as a draw if they go through. I can't remember what the table looks like exactly. Yeah. But
the permutations, this is when it starts to get strange, isn't it? So at the moment, Poland are on 4. They've got a goal difference of 2. Again, Argentina are second. They're on 3 points with a goal difference of +1. And Saudi Arabia are third on 3 points with a goal difference of -1. So if Saudi Arabia were to beat the Mexico, they'd be on 4. Minimum, they'd be on a goal difference of 0. And depending on how Argentina play, if they beat, or to be honest, even if Argentina and Poland drew, then they can still go. There's definitely options for Saudi Arabia.
Even if Poland win and if Poland win and Argentina lose, then Poland.
Could you imagine? If Argentina went out?
I'll be very honest. I want Saudi Arabia to go through because I think that they've had a good group stage, and I think that they've definitely re-announced themselves on the World Cup stage simply because in the past years they've just not been good. So I really do hope that they go through. Between Poland and Argentina, to be honest, I don't really care between the two of them who goes through. But I also wouldn't be shocked if Mexico maybe gets something against Saudi Arabia, because we saw when Saudi played against Poland, they were just struggling to finish their chances, to be clinical, and just 2 chances that Poland got, bang, they managed to score, and they lost that game, which they actually performed really well. So it'll be interesting to see. Also, imagine the shock if Argentina go out and Poland and Saudi Arabia go through. Like, it would be probably the biggest World Cup shocker that I've seen in this World Cup.
100%. It'll be massively shocking, and you can't rule it out. I mean, Argentina as well, they need to win their game. They need to beat Poland, because if they finish even second, I mean, obviously they need to win just to ensure that they go through. But if they finish second, we're then looking at a last 16 fixture of France versus Argentina. And I would not bank Argentina. I know obviously they won their last game, and again, people will talk about Messi and stuff like that, but I just don't see them beating France at all, even a weaker France at the moment. So Argentina already could be ruining that first game, that first loss against Saudi Arabia. And it's just funny how these tournament football works, isn't it? That, when people say, oh, you can always recover after an opening fixture, if they even get through and they have to face France, they'll be looking at that Saudi Arabia game going, that was the one. That was the one that cost us.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, especially, I don't know if people want Messi to go out from international football in this way, because I assume this is probably his last major tournament for Argentina. It would, I can't lie, Argentina versus France hypothetically would be a great round of 16. The thing is, I think regardless of who goes through in the groups, I think we're set up for good competition in the round of 16. And I think even like the semis and the quarters will be big countries facing each other pretty much in all the knockout rounds. So that would be interesting. Again, like I said, I want to see Saudi go through simply because this is the World Cup of underdogs. I want to see them go through, and I think that they do stand a chance. Like I said, if they beat Mexico, they'll go through regardless of the scoreline in the other game. So all they have to do really is focus on beating Mexico.
100%. They just need to focus on their own destiny. And again, given the way things are going, heading into this tournament, when they looked at that last game, they'd have thought, well, Mexico, look, they got a good side, they got good players, Jimenez, etc. They should beat Saudi Arabia. But now, after watching the tournament, you'd say, well, actually, Saudi Arabia, they might be the favourites going into that game. And it's a case of how do they actually manage that? How do they manage being the favourites given their style of play?
No, definitely. I remember coming into the tournament, I wrote off Saudi Arabia too, but then I remember like a week or so before, I was talking to a few people that I know that have played for the Saudi national team and whatnot, and they were saying like, listen, don't count this team out. Like it's a different national team compared to 2018 when they literally held 5 against Russia in the opening fixture. And we saw that again with the Argentina game. I think that really set a tone for the Saudi Arabia team, because they probably thought, okay, if we can beat Argentina, we can actually make something of this tournament for ourselves, and to make history, to actually go through to the round of 16 in what is the first World Cup in the Middle East is also a historic moment for them. So I think that is going to play on their mind. And the fact that they probably feel after beating Argentina that they can match up to any team, they can come up against any team, because I think they believe in themselves, they believe in their abilities. Like I said, 9 of the 11 starting against Argentina came from Al Hilal, which is the biggest team in Saudi Arabia, who actually, they just lost to Chelsea in the Club World Cup. I think they lost 1-0, but they were causing problems the entire game. And I think that they have definitely progressed. I think Saudi Arabia is what a lot of people thought Qatar were going to be at the World Cup. A lot of people thought Qatar were going to be a good team, a good nation. They spent 12 years preparing for this, preparing their football academy, their local league, coaching staff, all of that stuff. But I think Saudi Arabia have proven that they are exactly what everyone thought Qatar were going to be. They've developed their local leagues. They've created a competitive league in Saudi Arabia. They've got some of the best players in the Saudi league playing for their national team. They've got a great coach that's won 2 AFCONs with 2 different countries, taking another team to their first World Cup in a long time, and now making history probably with Saudi Arabia. So I think Saudi Arabia shouldn't be counted out for the fixtures today. If they get them 3 points, it'll be a good finish to, I think, the Poland versus Argentina game. I think, sorry, just one thing. I think with Argentina, they have to top the group.
Yeah,
there's no way that 100%. Argentina look at themselves and think, okay, we're okay with coming second, or they have to top the group with the team that they have, with the players that they have, and having Messi in their team. Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. I remember watching one of their game against Saudi, thinking, oh, if only they had like a winger that could run at players. But thank God Garnacho is sitting at home with his little feet up, resting for us.
Well, he's training, he's getting better, he's improving that physicality. We're going to need him when he's back. Speaking of which, VK says, I just want teams with United players to be knocked out and back at Carrington. There is a lot of club bias going on in that super chat.
I mean, it's not the worst thing, but also I do want a United player to come back with the World Cup, which could happen.
I think it's possible, absolutely possible. We've got players in pretty much every major squad. So I think United as a club are the top goal scorers at this World Cup.
I think
it would just be ironic, wouldn't it? It would just be ironic that the only trophy we win this season is the World Cup.
It's a World Cup.
It's not actually for United.
But you know what? I'll be bragging about it like I was bragging about when Pogba won the World Cup. I will be anytime someone has a debate, if hypothetically speaking, someone says to me, this player is not good, I'll be like, yeah, but they got a World Cup. They won the World Cup.
Exactly. I'll hear that so much. Then they'll be a great player, won a World Cup.
Do you want a World Cup?
What a World Cup. Anyway, there you go, guys. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Plenty of great UV content still coming soon. So be sure to subscribe, click that notification bell. You'll be notified every time we go live or a new video gets uploaded. We'll be back with the morning view tomorrow. There'll also be another video dropping later today. And as we go through the tournament as well, more World Cup match views coming soon. We're out of here. Have a good one. We'll speak to you again soon. Peace.